Good evening. Thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate everybody being here. I hope everyone has had a wonderful day. We are going to just spend a little bit of time today answering some questions, and I'm going to point you to some information that we've been provided by the state, kind of let you know where we are as far as the district and planning for the new year, and give you a chance to ask some questions and to give me some input if you need to, or tell me some things if anybody wants to do that. The first thing, let me tell you that on Tuesday, the commissioner finally gave us public health guidelines for starting school in the fall. So that's the thing that we've been waiting on, that we've been anxiously curious about what the state was going to say. They did come back and they took out the piece on square footage, on only allowing so many kids per square foot. And so that was a relief to us, because that was going to put us as a district in a real bind about figuring out how to put kids in classrooms. The thing that they did come back that was pretty controversial and has caused quite a bit of talk in the media and around is that they are going to require masks as long as the governor's order is still in place. Then all school districts will be required to have staff and students wear masks, except for students who are 10 and under, or who the district makes any other decisions on, you know, if there's some kind of disability or there's some medical history, or there's a medical reason that the child can't. If that governor's order is lifted, then that choice becomes district discretion. And so then the district has to decide if they want to require masks or not. In working with our committee, the NYPC committee, the recommendation before all this happened was that we would only recommend masks and make them optional. But now that it is mandatory across the state, of course, our plans moving forward will be what we're required to do, and that is to mandate masks. So the principals and I got together and kind of went through this planning guide. Some of the other things that are on there, they did say that they are not recommending that we take temperatures of students, because a lot of the kids who are contracting the virus do not present with a fever. And so they say it's kind of useless to take temperature of kids, but they recommend that we take temperature of all adults coming into the building. So it's a requirement that we must screen, or we must require that our staff self-screen themselves before coming into the building. So they have to answer questions and take their own temperature and then report that to the district. So that's another requirement that they came out with. Then the rest of it, there's a lot of shoulds or recommendations about hand sanitizer and washing hands, and trying to keep kids apart as much as possible, having exit and entrance plans so that we can eliminate congregation too much of kids. They also require us to have kids who have a positive case to stay out of school until they meet certain criteria to return. And anyone who's in close contact with them, and they define close contact in the definition of what we're required to do. So the TEA's definition of close contact is if you are, let me read it exactly how it says. If you are directly exposed to infectious secretions, that's number one, or you are within 6 feet of someone that has been diagnosed as a positive case for 15 minutes or more while not wearing a mask. And so that will kind of have to be what we use to determine if you have been in close contact or not. We are also required to have someone in the district that is a contact tracer. And that person will be in charge of, if we have a positive case, that person will be in charge of tracking back and tracing anyone that person came in contact with so that we can notify those people that there has been a positive case and possible exposure. So those are some of the things that we're working on. He talked also about synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And so the principals and I got together this week and started talking about all this. We spent about 4 hours just trying to kind of hash out what are we going to do, how are we going to address these things, and became very obvious that it was very hard for us to even start that planning without knowing where our community stood, where our parents were, what they were thinking. And so we sent out a survey. I sent out a survey, and so far I think we've got a little over 600 students that have that we can account for. Over 300 households have responded, but when we count kids, there's a little over 600. We have 1,060 enrolled in the district, so it's a little over half of our students that are represented in the response so far to the survey. Survey is going to be open till Monday, so I would plead with all of you that if you have friends or family that are parents here in Lexington, please encourage them to read that survey and give us some input. All we're trying to do, we're not trying to hold anybody to anything at this point. We're really just trying to have numbers so we can plan to open with the best situation that we can, an environment that we can provide for all of our kids. So in that, we had basically 2 questions. With mask and washing hands and hand sanitizer and those type things, would you want remote or would you want in-person instruction? And then a second question was, if we didn't have masks, but we had other hand washing and hand sanitizer and cleaning and those kind of things, would you want remote or in-person instruction? And then the third question was, what other comments or input do you have for the district? And what I began to realize yesterday afternoon as responses immediately started coming in was that there were a lot of questions. And so I worked on a frequently asked question page, and that is now posted on our website. I answered 16 questions on that FAQ today. There's been some more questions coming in, and so I'm going to add some to that tomorrow. But I'm hoping that that FAQ is going to help people understand and maybe get some more information out into our community. So please let people know that that survey is out there and that we really want this information so that we can plan appropriately. So the state has told us that we cannot have hold parents to a commitment until 2 weeks before school starts. So 2 weeks before school starts, parents will have to sign an actual commitment. I want in-person instruction for my child, or I want remote instruction for my child. And so at that point, we'll have some hard numbers. But right now, we just need numbers to start planning staff and locations and how we're going to do different things. So from the survey, just to kind of let you know where that stands right now, the numbers kind of surprised me. Across the state has been telling us to plan for about 30% of our students choosing remote and 70% choosing in person. I really didn't expect that from Lexington. I don't know why, but I figured our numbers would be different. But it actually is coming back pretty dead on. It is right now about 38% of the people who have responded are requesting remote, and 32% are requesting remote regardless of what the restrictions are or what we're doing. They just don't feel comfortable sending their kids back to school right now. So about 32%, a third of our student body is requesting to be remote instruction for the coming school year. When you look at it across the chart, there is at least one student in every, there's at least one student in every grade level that is requesting remote, except for kindergarten. Kindergarten was the only one so far that doesn't have any students requesting remote, as what I looked at about 30 minutes ago. And some of them are 2 or 3 kids. Some of them are 14, 15, 16 kids per grade level that are requesting remote. So it's going to really make a difference on how we staff and how we make assignments for the coming year. We will hold that open until Monday. Tuesday, the principals and I have a meeting where we're going to put all that information together and really try to see what we're dealing with and get a plan ready so that we can discuss that information with our NYPC committee the following Monday on July the 20th. So on July the 20th, we will have our committee meeting again. We'll look at the new state guidelines. We'll look at the responses of the survey. We'll go back over what recommendations are for our district. And then we will have that ready to go in a plan. On the following day, the 21st, that plan will be emailed out to the DEIC committee and also to our SHAC committee just to get input, let them review it, see if there's any comments or any other things that they as stakeholders have that they want to add to it. And then the administrators will take that that following week and devise the final plan for opening school, and then that will be sent to the school board for review. So I know that sounds like we're dragging our feet, but we are really trying to make sure we get input from everybody, that we look at this thing over and over and over again, and that we get the best possible situation in line for our staff and for our kids, both in person and remote. So I would encourage you all to make sure you read those FAQs, make sure you fill out the survey if you haven't done it, and then if you have, make sure you tell everybody that you know that's a parent in Lexington to get that filled out so it can help us plan. So that's really all I have, new information for you tonight, but I am open to questions. Be glad to answer anything that you have. I'll open up the chat so we can see what questions you have and what you might need to know as we move forward. And I believe there is chat available on this Meet, and there's also a number if you want to text a question, then you can text a question. You can text a question to Mr. Patchke. And he did say that there was a little bit of trouble with this link when we first started. And so we are now good and repaired. The number, if you want to text a question, is 979-773-3018. 773-3018 if you have a question that you want to address.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what like the buses are going to be like, or what a normal school day is going to be like now?
The buses, we will have hand sanitizer on the buses. As long as the mask order is in place, they will have to wear masks on the bus. We did get all of our buses air conditioned over the last couple of months. So that was one thing I was really worried about with masks, is the heat and especially in August. But other than that, they will be sitting, we don't have room to spread them multiple seats apart, but they will have masks and they will have hand sanitizer on the buses. Our times may vary by minutes, but right now our plan is to have our day very similar to what the day was last year.
Does that include recess and lunches at school?
Yes. So we still have to look at how we put them in the cafeteria, or how we, seat them according to the guidelines that we have to follow. But we don't have any plans right now to cut out any recesses, or our recommendation at this point is to feed them in the cafeterias.
Thank you for that information.
Sure. Another thing that a lot of people have asked me is why we wouldn't go to school on a hybrid model where we came a couple of days a week and then at home a couple of days a week. And that's something we had discussed in the NYPC committee quite lengthy, and it seemed to be pretty popular in that if we needed to separate or spread out, that would be a better way to do it than to be full remote. But the commissioner, when they came out with this new guidance, has told us that we are required by the state to offer instruction 5 days a week to anybody who wants to send their child to those to that 5-day week. So we can't force people into a hybrid or only on this day or that day. We have to offer 5 day a week of in-person instruction. Other questions? Okay, here's one that was written in. Is there a possibility being considered about maybe having in-classroom camera, a Zoom, going on during class instruction that could be used dual purposes? So if the teachers are having on-campus class, there could be students remotely participating in class via camera or something like a Zoom meeting. It would help teachers cover both ways of teaching, but also help provide that structure for those students that are not good self-paced learners. Absolutely. That is something that's being discussed. That is what the state is referring to as synchronous instruction, which means it's live. It's happening just like all the other kids in the class. You're just watching it from a computer. And so while we may be going asynchronous, where we're not requiring kids to do that for every class period, for every minute of the day, there's going to be synchronous times when our teachers are going to be filming themselves in the classroom and being live so that kids can log in and actually participate via the computer. Another thing, and I've mentioned this before, I'm not sure if I've mentioned in this group, but this year we were able to kind of move around how we were spending some of our technology money, and we've purchased enough Chromebooks that we will be able to issue a Chromebook pre-K through 12 for every student, so that for those students choosing remote, they will have a device issued by the district to be able to get on and log on. Some of the examples we talked about were in the lower grades, and they're teaching phonics or they're doing some kind of instruction that the kids really need to see the teacher doing that instruction, that they may log in for just that piece of the instruction and then log out and complete the work on their own, or do some kind of activity and then come back at another time during the day and log in or respond to the teacher. Things are going to look a lot different for remote than they did in the spring because of the plans and the requirements for what we need to, what we're going to have to meet for the state. Another question just came in. When the kids are at PE or recess, do they still wear the mask with the heat? Unfortunately, yes, unless we are doing activities that have them 6 feet apart. Now, when they're actually exercising, they're going to be able to take them off, but they're going to have masks with them, because if they're moving stations or they're moving among each other, they have to put them back on. It's the same thing with like our UIL, with our football and volleyball and those kind of activities. While they're actually working out, they can take them off. But when they're standing around or they're moving positions or moving groups, they're required to put them back on. Another question just came in. Once we commit to our children attending in person or virtually, when can that be amended? Things change so fast. Totally agree with you. You are allowed to switch back and forth at grading periods. It's very hard, and depending on how we staff that, it may be different teachers taking care of remote versus in class. And so we're going to require that that be done at a grading period. So 9 weeks. And then if you were remote and you wanted to come back to school, you could do that. If you want to leave school because there's some kind of exposure, or there's something going on with someone in your family, or the child themselves has tested positive, then it would be an immediate to remote. But coming back in, we're only doing that on grading periods so that we can make sure kids don't have gaps in what they're being instructed, and make sure everything's covered for that grading period before we switch the platform that they're in. How do the teachers feel about being on campus? I'm sure there are many concerns from them for their safety. Has the teacher pool been asked if they prefer online or remote? We do have several teachers that are very concerned, and that are not excited about coming back with possible exposure. The majority of our teachers, I can't speak for the majority of them. I'll say this: we've heard both sides. I've heard some teachers email me with concerns and that they're concerned about their own health, and then I've had some that are, I am concerned, but I'm ready to be back. Let me in the classroom. Unfortunately, we don't have enough students to just let every teacher choose whether they want to be online or remote. We've been told by the state that we have to be in person 5 days a week, which requires us to have our staff here 5 days a week. And so that's kind of where we are with them. We're going to do everything we can to keep our staff as safe and healthy as possible. They are all going to be provided masks. We're going to have shields for various different, face shields for various different employees, especially those who teach phonics or speech, who have to, the kids need to see their mouth. And so we're having hand sanitizer in every classroom. We're going to have things wiped down. We're going to have wipes for the desk. We're going to do everything that we possibly can to keep everybody as safe as possible. But our teachers will be required to return to campus to fulfill their teaching. Information, if the child is taught online, would the child be able to come for their welding class? So that's another thing that we are going to talk about with NYPC. But what we have to do with that is the commissioner actually addressed this today and said that those type of classes should be dealt with just like we deal with athletics or theater arts or anything like that. If we're going to allow kids to come up to practice or to be in theater arts or anything like that, then we should also have ways that we allow kids to come up to fulfill obligations for different CTE courses like welding or cooking or teaching or anything like that that we would have. So those are all things we're going to have to look at on an individual basis as far as the course is concerned. But we will, if a child is remote, work to do whatever we can to make sure that that child can get everything that they would get if they were at school. Will middle school students be switching classes throughout the day? Yes, they will be switching classes throughout the day. All secondary students will do that. When you get into that middle school area, you have teachers who have specialty certifications and degrees and teaching experience. So, you know, we can't, we've got to switch those kids around to get them to the classes and the teachers who are teaching those courses. So they will be switching. We will be cleaning desks between every class and wiping things down and spraying and doing hand sanitizer between each switch. We're also in the process of discussing what those transitions look like. How do you make those transitions without having congregation of students in the hallway kind of all up around each other while they're getting to their next class? So those are logistics that we're working out, but they will be switching classes each period. Okay, hang on, let me scroll down, I'm sorry. If by next month the decision is for the students to actually go back to class and not have homeschool, can I as a parent still choose to have my child at homeschool? Okay, I think you're asking, and this one came in as a text message, so I'm not sure who it is, but I think you're asking me that if the state says, okay, now everybody go back to class and you still want to have home remote instruction, can you do that? The state has already told us that for this school year, the whole school year, we as a district have to offer remote instruction. So even if the COVID numbers go way down and things look great and most people come back and you as a parent are still not comfortable sending your child to school and want to be remote, for this school year, we have to provide you remote instruction all year long. And if that didn't answer your question, please let me know. But I think that's what it is. Another question just said, I've noticed that when practice such as cross country, is very difficult to keep students social distancing between gathering, not running. I know some kids are not receptive and staying out of grouping when gathering or practice. Has that been discussed? Yes. Coach Mole and I actually discussed this just yesterday, and it's something that we're going to have to continue to reiterate with kids. He said he felt like those first couple of days they were back, he did that constantly, spread apart, get away from each other. But we're going to have to look at other things that we can do that will encourage that, and that may be actually having certain stations or dividing with lines or whatever, but we're going to have to really work to see what we can do to keep kids from congregating as much as possible. One thing right now is with the mask, you can be within 6 feet of each other, but we're still not supposed to have large groups. So, but once those masks come off, when the actual exercise or participation is taking place, then they're not supposed to be all grouped together. We are waiting for more information from UIL as well. Right now, all the information we have from UIL is strictly for summer conditioning and training. And they have assured us that before August 3rd, which is the first day volleyball and football can start their season of working out, that before that date, we will have guidance on the fall semester. So we're really waiting on them to get some more guidance with that, but that is something that we're going to address with the kids. And it's going to be a constant battle. It's going to take time. Our teachers and our administrators are going to have to spend a lot of their time talking to kids and coaching kids on social distancing and respecting that, respecting other people's spaces. That's been one thing that through this whole process I've said over and over again, is that for the one person who feels very strongly one way, there's another person who feels very strong the other way, and that we all have to find a way of respecting that. And I think that's something we're going to have to teach kids as well, is that you've got to respect other people's spaces, you've got to respect their opinions and their thoughts on this whole matter, and we have to work together to keep people safe. What is the plan for extracurricular activities such as football and volleyball games? Right now, we don't have any guidance on that. We're waiting for that guidance, other than they've told us we'll be able to stream games this year live. They've not given us guidance on those things. I can tell you that right now, for workout purposes, outdoor workouts are not restricted by numbers. Indoor workouts are restricted to 50% capacity. So I don't know if that will translate in once we start talking about games and practices for fall seasons, or if they'll take all of that away when we start. We're just going to have to wait and see. And like I said, I expect that guidance by the last week of July, because that's right before the season starts. How would new registration go? If you have a new child in our district, if you will just contact the office that child is supposed to go to. All of our principals are still on contract for the summer, and they're in their offices. If you can't get in touch with anybody, you can contact me here at central office or anybody in this office, and we'll make sure that we get you registered. We are opening our doors for appointments only, so that they're not open all the time for the public to come in and out. But we will make an appointment with you on whatever campus you need to register at, and we'll get you all taken care of. Will we know what the requirements for remote learning will be like before we commit? Yes. Once we get this plan in place of exactly what we're going to offer and how that's going to look, we will have that out for you before you sign your commitment form. One thing that would help, I think I put it out there, on one of the questions on the FAQ, I put a link to, it's called Asynchronous Instruction, and that's the type of remote instruction that we'll be offering. And it's a list, or it's a plan from the state that tells you what we have to do, that will give you a little bit of an indication of what asynchronous remote instruction is going to look like. We do have to have contact by the teacher at least weekly to the student. We have to have daily interaction where the student is engaged in some type of instruction and interaction. We have to show how we're monitoring progress into the TEKS or the material. We have to have assessments, and grading has to be the same that it is in the in-person class for that same content. And so that document, if you look on the FAQ, will help you kind of see what remote's going to look like. But before you actually sign a commitment form, you will have Lexington ISD remote instruction plan to read through and know exactly where we are. All right, let's see. Let me scroll down. Is there an issue with the in-class distancing based on how many students are on campus? Has it been considered that maybe the milestone grades such as K, 5, 8, 9, and 12, or any of the grades that require the standardized testing, be the students that can be on campus should they choose versus being at home? I hope that question makes sense. All the grades are important, but those critical grades that can make or break students. So the state will not allow us to say certain grades have to be on campus and others can be at home. We are required to offer in-person instruction to every student in the district regardless of grade, and we are required to offer remote instruction to every student in the district regardless of grade. And so we can't really designate. Of course, we know that TEA at this point is still planning on holding us responsible for testing. And so those are critical grade levels that we need to make sure that we're getting that instruction done. My plan and my hope is that the improvements and things that our teachers are going to do in those remote instruction classes will be just as rigorous and will hold our students to that expectation of learning that material just like if they were sitting in the classroom. All of our teachers are going to be going through training for Google Classroom, and we will be using that pre-K through 12. And they will have all their materials and all the things that they're doing in their in-class classes will also be happening in those remote classes. And so we hope that that's going to make a difference for how our students can progress during that time. What is the plan for extracurricular activities such as band? Band actually has new guidelines as well for summer. They have they sent those out just last week as well. UIL did, and it's basically they can practice. They have to wear their mask coming to and from practice, but when they're actually rehearsing or playing, they can take their mask off. They are able to come together and practice. I'm sure Mr. Wilbanks and Mr. Danheim will be sending out information for that. We don't have information for what that's going to look like as far as performances are concerned in the fall for games and things like that. We're kind of waiting for UIL to let us know where that is. I'm sure you guys have noticed a couple of the big announcements as far as colleges are concerned the last couple of days. The Ivy League schools, the Ivy League colleges have canceled all their fall sports for the fall for this year. And the Big 12 made an announcement today that they are not going to travel with their bands or their cheerleaders. Or their bands and cheerleaders are only going to perform in home games at colleges in the Big 12 for this year. So I don't know if that's the start of a trend or not, but that's what some of the colleges are starting to talk about. Let's see here. Will 4th and 5th grade be switching classes? Yes, 4th and 5th grade will be switching classes. 4th and 5th grade are the only two classes that are required to wear masks on our elementary. And I know there were several questions about that. And I can't tell you, my personal opinion on any of that. I can just tell you that according to what the governor put out, we're required to require masks for 10 and under, and we have to be consistent across that grade level. So 4th and 5th graders both will be required to wear masks. They will switch classes, and we will be wiping down desks and doing the hand sanitizer and the spray just like we're doing in the secondary courses at middle school and high school. Will athletics be able to compete? If you do online, can you still participate in athletics? So the recommendation that's on the table right now, things change on a daily basis, but what's on the table right now is that remote instruction students will still be able to participate in any extracurricular activities. And so that that student would still be able to be a part of the team or the group or the club or whatever it is. It's the extracurricular activity. We just have to work out the logistics of that as far as practices are concerned, during school, after school, during the class time, what would be required to get credit for that course and things like that. If a parent commits to remote and their child is in band, will they be allowed to participate in marching band activities, games, UIO, etc.? So same answer to that question is that right now, yes, that the recommendation that's on the table right now is that all of our remote students would still be able to be involved in extracurricular activities. But again, we would have to work out the logistic of what that looks like during the band period, after school rehearsals, and then participation in competitions and all that would still be allowed. Okay. If a student shows up and has forgotten their mask, will there be some available for them? If riding the bus, will they also have possible extra masks? Yes. The state is sending us quite a few masks, student masks for us to have, and then we are also purchasing masks. So while we are encouraging parents to provide masks for their students, we will have some extra masks on hand for students who forget them, or if they get torn up or dirty or anything like that, then we'll have something to replace there. I fully expect there to be some really, if we're still under the mask order, I think there'll probably be some real creative masks that end up coming to school that first couple of weeks, but we'll have some to replace if they need it. On the bus, we will also have masks. If students get there and they don't have a mask, then we'll be able to provide them a mask at that point. How will the guidelines and policies affect extracurricular activities, dances, field trips, assemblies, and programs? Right now, and the way the guidelines read, we're not allowed to have large gatherings or groupings. So assemblies, pep rallies, field trips haven't really been addressed at all. But large gatherings of students is something that will be avoided unless numbers go down or we make some kind of change in the way we're doing things. Those will be things that we'll talk about a little bit more. The only way that we're really allowed to do that would be if we could spread everybody out 6 feet apart, and that would be pretty much impossible in most of our facilities. So we'll be continuing to look on that. Thank you for getting AC on the buses. Long overdue. I had to laugh about this. It's not funny because we're just in a really weird situation, but I had to laugh that we worked on that all spring to make sure that we could start this year with air conditioning on the buses, and really worked hard to make that happen. And then the recommendation from TEA came out to ride with the windows open to have more clean air circulation in the buses. And of all years, we finally get AC and they tell us that we should be riding with the windows down. So I found that a little humorous. In mid-August, I feel certain we're going to have the AC going for our students. It's going to be a little too hot for that. Can anything be given to parents to try to help teach their kids to be more aware of social distancing? Too much is put on the teachers to enforce or teach this, and the parents need to take responsibility and teach at home. I think that's a great idea. I think that as we get closer to the beginning of school year, you may see us do a lot of public health and safety things kind of blasted out to ask you guys to help us. One thing that I've already seen out there for some of our elementary kids is, we encourage you every year. One of the big changes for an elementary kids is lunch. Practice opening their lunchbox with them, practice opening their food, and help them and make sure they can do everything they need to do to eat their lunch out of their lunchbox. So this year it may look even more different than that, in that let them practice having that mask on, 4th and 5th graders. Let them see you with that mask on. Teachers are going to have their mask on, and is that going to make those kids uncomfortable? They need to know before they get there that mask is going to be there. So I think there's going to be a lot of things we're going to talk about and send information about out to parents to help us in teaching that social distancing. And if you guys could jump in already and just kind of help us in supporting that social distancing and respecting their peers and their peers' opinions and their peers' social space, and that would be great. You know, we all have very strong opinions one way or other about this whole situation. And it's going to be a matter of just respecting everybody and respecting their opinion, regardless of what ours is, because we all have to work together to make this work. And our kids are going to have to be a big part of that on campus, is really working together to keep everybody safe and keep everybody healthy, because we don't want to go home again. We don't want our kids to go home again. We want our kids at school. Our teachers want to see our kids. And so whatever we can do that will help prevent us from having to send everybody home, we want to do. And we would appreciate any help that parents could do for that. How will lunches in high school be done? We haven't gotten to the specifics of that, or at the elementary or middle school either. We're going to have to spread them out some, especially at the middle school. We're packed into that lunchroom, and so we're going to have to figure out some other ways to do that. We've talked about multiple places of allowing kids to eat, different shifts coming in staggered times. So that's something that we don't have nailed down yet. But when we get to that point, it will be in that plan. And when we release that plan, that'll all be spelled out for you. A good community service project for those working towards National Honor Society awards, or mass making for donations to LISD would be added, considered maybe. Also, maybe if a student is behind on those credits for those senior chords, maybe they could use it as a catch up to earn an award. I definitely think, you know, there's lots of good service projects out there. That would be something great to talk to Ms. Garrison about, or to talk to National Honor Society sponsors about ways that they could help with masks and with kids who might not have masks or be able to get those. Why aren't students 10 and under not required to wear a mask? Children who have upper respiratory problems such as asthma. I don't know why the governor chose 10 and under as the requirement. That was something that came down from the state. I know that he felt like 10 and under would be more difficult for them to keep them on. They wouldn't keep them on as easily. They also believe that that age group is the age group that is spreading the virus the least, and that is one area that they can let that mask restriction up a little bit and not cause a problem with spreading the virus. I do know there are some kids who have upper respiratory problems, and we're not going to limit or prohibit kids under 10 from wearing masks. So if there are students who want to wear masks, we're going to recommend that, encourage that, support that. We're just not going to require the 10 and under to wear those masks. How will STAR testing be done for virtual students? That's a great question. We will probably have to make an arrangement for you to bring your students up to the district to do that. The state has not released any guidelines on how that's going to happen. They are starting to release some guidelines on how just normal testing, like assessment 6 weeks test, 9-week tests, those kind of tests can be done. There's lots of new programs out there that can monitor a child taking a test and make sure they're not accessing any other websites or moving from that location while they're taking the test. But the state has not said for sure how they will handle remote instruction students for that test. The first comments that were made about that were that we would have to offer a day for those remote children to come on campus when other students weren't there, or when they would not encounter other students to take the test. But we'll have to wait on more guidance on that before we know. That'll be, our first test that we'll actually have. Some retesters will be in December. And so before that point, we'll have more guidance on how that's going to work. Do high school advanced English classes have a summer reading project posted on the website under Back to School? I hate to say this, but I have no idea. I will get with Miss Garrison and we'll make sure we get that information out. I'm not sure that they've made that assignment or not. So we'll check into that and see. I didn't see on the TEA planning document a reference to a certain number of threshold of positive cases on a campus that would require closure. Is that up to the school district, or will the state mandate that? Right now, they're saying it's up to the school district. They are saying that if you have a case or multiple cases, that you should, if it was exposure in a large percentage of your campus, that you should consider closing that campus down for a day or two to clean and disinfect, and then you should be right back at school. So one of the big differences this year with closures, and this may change, but as of right now, the state is only going to allow a district to be closed for 5 days. So we cannot be closed for more than 5 days at a time. And their hope with that is that we will only be closed for 1 or 2 days and then go right back to school. And the indication would be that we would identify the person, trace the contact that person had, notify those people, and then come back to school. On the days that we go off, if we have to be closed for 1 or 2 days or 5 days, then we will go remote instruction at that point. That's one reason it was really important for us to get devices for every student, is so that we could switch that way and have students completing some instruction. As long as we're completing instruction on those days that we close, then we don't have to make those days up. If we don't do instruction on those days, then we have to find ways to tack days onto our calendar so that we can make those days up to get our required minutes that the state requires of us. All right. I think that is all the written questions that are on the chat right now. Let me check with Mr. Patchke to see if he has any. I don't think he has any right now as well. Anyone is welcome to speak up at this point. We still have about 70 people on the call right now. So anyone who wants to speak up and just ask a question out loud, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay, another question just came in. 10 and under for mask. Some of the fourth will have to wear mask and some will not. Is this correct? No. The district will require all fourth graders to wear a mask. We believe that the consistency of that just makes sense, that if we're going to have some in that room that are required to wear masks, that we should require all in that grade level to wear masks. So all fourth graders and all fifth graders will be required to wear masks while they're here at school, regardless of whether they're 9 or 10. I really wish the commissioner or the governor would have chosen a grade level versus an age, because that puts us in an awkward situation. But we felt like that would be almost useless if we had some kids with masks and some kids not in the same grade level. So we're going to require it across the board for fourth graders. Other questions? Any comments or input or anything that you guys have as far as things you would like to see from the district, more information, more meetings? The summer work is posted on the back to school website. Okay, I guess that is the English classes. I'm assuming that's what we're talking about. Yes. Okay. So there is summer work for the advanced English classes on the website under back to school, and that is current and required. So if your child is in those advanced English classes, make sure you look at that. I've not looked at that, and I apologize. Anything else that you as parents need to know, want from the district, need from the district, more communication, more meetings, anything like that that we can do for you as we move forward in this process? Okay, one last chance, going once, going twice. Any other questions of anybody tonight that we need to answer? I we'll let you know that you're welcome, Ms. Ralston. We'll host another chat probably in a week, maybe 2, once we kind of get things going on our plan. And we'll share that with you guys, and you will know if I get any additional information from UIL or from the state that changes anything. I will make sure we schedule a chat. Please share this information with all the other parents that you know. It's very important to me that we get the word out and that we keep the communication lines open. If I can do anything for you, please do not hesitate to email me, call me, stop by the office. I would love to chat with any of you that have more information that you think the district needs in this process. I appreciate each of you. I respect each of you as parents in this district, and your opinions and your thoughts do matter to me. So have a wonderful evening. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and I will talk to you in the next couple of weeks. Thanks.